A new study suggests most of Mars's water may have gone into the ground. Our solar system got visited by a shard of a planetoid. And 7 interstellar space rocks probably fly past us every year. It's week 12 of 2021.
On Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. With the latest science and space news, this is Talkin' Science with Dr. Brad Tucker and Matt Miller.
Welcome to Talkin' Science. Matt Miller with you in Studio 4 with the latest science and space news headlines. Dr. Brad is here as he is every Tuesday. Brad, happy Tuesday.
It's a very wet Tuesday here in Canberra.
Yes, everywhere along Australia's eastern seaboard is just getting absolutely belted with rain. It's nice soaking rain, but it's been going on a little too long, I think.
Yeah, look, some places are obviously flooding. Luckily, Canberra, we haven't had it too bad, but at our house, we've had 112 as of an hour ago millimeters of rain, which when in 2019 we only had like 280. When you're almost half of the other year's total, just shows how wet this is and how dry that year was.
Absolutely. Well, astronomically, a couple of days ago, for our Northern Hemisphere viewers and listeners, Cassiopeia put on a bit of a show. It's likely to be a new nova, increasing magnitude from 9 to 7.5. This one's really interesting and was brought to my attention by a Twitter viewer.
Nova Cassiopeia 2021. So the first one in Cassiopeia. It's a bright object. It's currently visible to binoculars, maybe visible to the naked eye if it brightens more. It was discovered by a very good nova discoverer, Nakamura, who's in Japan. So you may be able to visibly see it if you're in a dark area in the Northern Hemisphere, but we won't see it here in the South.
Well, before we get into the show, a quick reminder of the socials. We can find you on Twitter at btucker22. I'm on Twitter at Miramat86, and of course TrekZone on Twitter at TrekZone.org. YouTube and podcasting apps as well. Just search for TrekZone, like, follow, and subscribe. Do all that cool stuff so that YouTube knows that we're important and worthy of people's attention. Brad, let's get into the show. And our first story this week is all about the SLS booster, NASA's next generation spacecraft that's going to take it or complete the Artemis missions, had a successful test fire on Friday.
Yeah, it was something we talked about because the previous test about 6-7 weeks ago, they shut it down only a little after a minute. Not that they necessarily thought there was anything wrong, but they were reaching the safety limits of the test. They opened it up, reran it, and had a successful test for the 8 and a bit minutes that they want to launch. And that's the time it takes to get into space, or at least leave the Earth's atmosphere, where then the other parts of the system start kicking on. So it was great to see that. And now the goal, I guess, for them will be to push a launch of Artemis 1, this year. They want to make it happen this year. So we'll see.
The biggest asteroid this year has zoomed really, really close to Earth, Brad, within 2 million kilometers. 2,000 kilometers is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, 2,000 kilometers we definitely worry about. 2 million kilometers we still want to know about, but not as a bit of a worry. But 2001 FO32, about 600 meters wide, was or labeled a potentially hazardous asteroid. It comes within that threshold. 2 million kilometers is about 6-ish times the distance the moon is away from the Earth. So still pretty far away, but still relatively close. We like to keep tabs on these things as they go around. But yeah, it is the first one of the year, and there will probably be more. But luckily, it's kept on going.
Brad, into the stories of the week. A new study is aiming to find the location of Mars's water, and they reckon they've spotted it in the ground, in the dirt. This is fascinating new research.
Yeah, look, this has been a perplexing question for quite a while. Where is Mars's water? We see water on the surface. We see evidence of it. We know there's ice, and so there's been calculations that have said, well, maybe it's evaporated, maybe Even giant Martian storms have kind of funneled the water up into Mars's weak atmosphere, and then it dissipates into space. But this one, as you're saying, was that maybe just over time, not only does the water dry out, so to speak, but because of such prolonged bonding to the Martian soil, that in fact water then breaks up the hydrogen and oxygen. So you just have hydrogen and oxygen molecules or atoms in the water or in the Martian soil, and that's now where the water is.
And these scientists have been running some tests and some simulations to try and predict where this water's gone. They do think that beneath the surface is the most likely location, especially with the lack of an atmosphere. It would all just evaporate and disappear quite quickly.
Yeah, that's right. And it would evaporate and dissipate quite quickly. It would help solve one of these problems of, again, where the water went. But then on the flip side, it's a little bit more reassuring, isn't the right word, but exciting that if then hydrogen and oxygen is still essentially there and it's not gone from the planet, that's all we need, right? People care about hydrogen and oxygen. Yes, water for humans, but really that is the base ingredients for rocket fuel. And in fact, if it's already broken up for us to some degree, it's actually saved us a little bit of work. And maybe there will have to be obviously some evaluation of the techniques, but this might help the idea of extracting that for fuel for future Mars traveling.
Now, these simulations and some analysis of water on Mars back in its heyday suggests that the gigantic ocean would have been between 100 meters and 1,500 meters deep. That's quite a ways down, and a lot of water that kind of all just disappeared, surely.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is, when we're talking about, 1,500 meters deep, we're talking about deep in terms of relative to even the Earth. These aren't little puddles. These are oceans in that sense. And this has been one of, I think, the perplexing problems is it doesn't just go away. Something has had to happen. And something has had to cause a fairly quick demise of the water without the atmosphere also changing dramatically. If we look at, say, Venus, where we think has gone changes and its climate and now a runaway greenhouse, you can understand how that happens. Mars still, if there was water in Mars's atmosphere weakened and it just got colder, well, then maybe it should have frozen or something. It is one of these perplexing problems, but then it's also insightful for what we can understand from the Earth as well.
And these new studies are indicating that the volume of water on Mars is up to 3/4 the volume of our Atlantic Ocean. So it's not as watery as Earth, but certainly enough to sustain a colony, or even, as you were talking about there, mining that water, those elements for continued rocket launches and spaceflight.
That's right. Even though it's kind of one ocean of ours instead of maybe seven, as you said, it is helpful to think that, well, we do know Mars already is smaller, right? We do know Mars is already a smaller planet. So it's not dramatically surprising that water would scale down. But also, an entire ocean full of water doesn't just go away easily. And that's the other perplexing thing. We're not talking about one small lake's worth of water or a stream. We're talking about as you said, the Atlantic Ocean disappearing from sight. That is a problem.
It absolutely is. Well, next up, Brad, I'm going to need your help in pronouncing the name of this object, but it's now likely to Oumuamua. Thank you.
There you go.
It's most likely to be a planet, a shard of a planetoid, rather than some strange alien spaceship that was initially thought.
So Oumuamua is not just a tongue tie. It means Hawaiian for scout or visitor from afar. And it's an interesting case because, this was the first object that we thought came in from another solar system, what we call interstellar. It was it looked differently, it moved differently. It just didn't make sense. And so this has been something that has been a source of study of where did it come from and what is it? And it's gone from maybe being a comet because it was rotating and moving weird, but it didn't have a comet tail, to maybe it's just a different type of asteroid, again from another solar system, to now, as you said, maybe it is a fragment protoplanet or dwarf planet like Pluto. And so maybe this is the bits of it, of the main planetary core, or dwarf planet core rather, that didn't quite form or didn't quite capture, got somehow ejected out of that solar system, traveled through space, and came to us. And look, whether this is what happened or not, this object is going to be studied for quite a while, of how just interesting Oumuamua is.
Now, not everyone buys this theory of what Oumuamua is. Harvard University is saying that it's possibly artificial. They're still maintaining that it's artificial, possibly a light sail from another solar system.
Yeah, Avi Loeb has been really pushing this view, much to the disagreement mostly of the rest of the community, to be honest. And while, yes, it's exciting to think about it, and it was one of those ideas early on that maybe it could be, there's lots of evidence to suggest that it is more natural. And it all comes back down to the way the asteroid, or the object, I should say, Oumuamua, is moving. So again, there seems to be some sort of propulsion or movement that is a bit not just from a rock moving through space, which is why the comet idea came to it. We do know comets, as they leave their trail of debris, their beautiful tail accelerates them. It's a big leap of faith, and I use that word strongly, to even think that this is the case. I do think the potentially Pluto-like argument is quite interesting, because the reason this study is suggesting that is they find evidence of lots of frozen nitrogen ice, and nitrogen ice is very abundant on Uranus, Neptune, those ice giants, and Pluto as well. And so maybe that kind of fits. And if you think about things like Pluto and where they exist, they're far on the edge of a solar system, like comets, could make it easily for them to be ejected or leave their solar system and travel through space.
Now, there's going to be plenty of time to continue to study Oumuamua, because it's not going to leave the solar system until 2040.
Yeah, it's very hard to find though right now. It's very faint, very distant. So maybe if new techniques come on, they can find it. But what is exciting is things like Borisov, which was discovered 2 years ago, was again another interstellar object that was found, and pretty conclusively found to be a comet, because they looked at it and it was a comet. So, and this kind of goes back to, well, maybe Oumuamua is still a comet, leading to that theory. But there's some more that are suggesting that maybe there's even more of these things out there. The fact that we've already found two, maybe there's more to find than we previously thought.
And that leads perfectly into our last story of the week, Brad. Some theories are suggesting that we could be visited by up to 7 of these objects a year.
That's right. Based on data from the Gaia satellite and their motions, that maybe these objects aren't as rare as we believed. And so the fact that we've now had techniques to monitor where they come, the short of it is, if they're coming at an angle into our solar system being a giant disk, we generally look for things in that disk. If you're in the solar system, that's what makes sense. And this is where things like Pluto and stuff would kind of go in this weird shape, have been special. It takes a lot of work to look in all this other area. And in looking in this other area, they found Oumuamua and Borisov. And so maybe looking there more, and as new facilities come online, being able to look in these areas more and more frequently and more sensitively, we will find more of them. And as you said, there could be maybe 7 that come into our solar system every year.
Now, if it is 7, surely that's an alien civilization trying to come and meet us. I'm kind of on Abby's side here.
And this also goes to it, right? If there are so many, they're probably just natural things that do happen. And I think this is the thing of Oumuamua. If Oumuamua was the only one, maybe. But the fact that we're now found two, that one that definitely looks like a comet, and there could be more out there, it's exciting. And I think really where it's exciting is if there are more, then missions could be planned to go and land or retrieve samples from one, which would be a huge excitement because it would actually be measuring an actual interstellar object, an interstellar solar system.
It is incredible, and it is going to be pretty hard to spot these things. I mean, we can barely spot comets before they're right on top of us, asteroids as well before they're right on top of us. So to get eyes on an interstellar object before it's too late necessarily is going to be a challenge, but people are up for it, and they're looking right now, as you say.
Yeah, it is a really interesting problem because it's hard to find, as you said, asteroids. It is hard to find comets, even these faint things. And so if you're looking for even fainter things that are coming from further distances and in different motions than we previously thought, it is going to be tough. But I think people are up for the challenge, especially if you can find one early enough and have a mission ready, and this is part of the plan, a mission ready to go and retrieve samples from it. That's the exciting bit. And facilities like the Vera Rubin telescope may be able to do this.
Well, it is absolutely incredible, and watch this space indeed. Well, Brad, that's where we've come to the end of Talking Science for another week. But before we go, a quick reminder that Dr. Luke Daly has beamed in for a chat about the Global Fireball Observatory. They found a carbonaceous chondrite thanks to some findings from that observatory, which is really, really cool. The video is available for people in the card here on YouTube or on trexzone.org. Jump over and check that one out. It's a really fascinating chat with Luke and the Global Fireball Observatory, keeping an eye on the night sky for those asteroids and those meteorites that might be hurting us, or Brad, or even landing back to Earth. Brad, it's fantastic to pick apart the stories of the week as we do every week. Looking forward to doing it again next week.
Sounds good.